Hey, I'm Nico. I was widowed 4 years ago, almost to the day. Not long after I walked away from a car crash as the sole survivor, and then October came around, and I lost my best friend to suicide. So as you can tell, this video will be heavily focused on grief, survivor's guilt, and what I've learned during that time. Coming to terms with something as horrific as this has been absolutely the most difficult part of my life, if I'm being completely honest. It was a lot to process. My life completely changed during that time. I was no longer just a 20-year-old who escaped home and moved countries and was successful. I was all of a sudden forced to deal with something that I was just not prepared for. And it's quite interesting. I pretty much saw my life burn up in flames in the span of half a year. All my dreams, all the plans I had for the future, everything just vanished. But this wasn't really about me. This is really all about the people I lost. These were the 5 closest people to me. They were pretty much my newfound family. To give context to that, my own family isn't exactly the best. I pretty much only talk to my brother and my nephews. So that gives kind of a perspective, right? I think the hardest part was definitely the grief that followed my partner's untimely passing. Moving forward from something like that and continuing to live was not easy. I became suicidal for quite a while. You know, I pretty much had nothing to live for anymore. All the people I cared about were gone, and it really made me consider, like, what's the point? And yet I found something in myself to keep myself alive. I don't know what it was exactly. I think cheating death 2 times like that was kind of a wake-up call, and somehow I developed this belief that, you know, it couldn't be for nothing. I've managed to find meaning in something as meaningless as that. Somehow I've built my life up to a point where I'm happy to be here. I'm happy with where my life is at, and I have all these happy memories and these people I hold so dear to my heart. You know, in a way, even though they've passed, we keep them alive by honoring their memories, speaking about them and stuff like that. And I think grief can be quite beautiful, and so I've kind of shifted my focus to be about what they meant to me. You know, if I can have those relationships, there must be like an in-between. I must be able to make something of it again. You know, in my mind, grief is something that shows your vulnerability, just due to how much these people meant to me. And I think that's the beauty in it, a sign of your humanity. It might be painful, but I got to experience being around these people, got to experience who they were, and that's what pains me. Didn't get to have the time they should have, which is a segue into survivor's guilt. I want to speak on that. For a long time I found it difficult to just live. Like, how could I be happy when these people were no longer here, you know? Who was I to have a life even? But when it comes to guilt and the questions that arises, it's an interesting phenomenon. I still wonder all these years later, like, what if it had been me instead? What if I had been the one to pass? And even just the moments leading up to it, knowing it could have been different. I try not to blame myself too much, but I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes life kicks me on my ass and it still bugs me. Why was I the one, right? But honestly, in some ways I'm glad it was me. I wouldn't wish this pain on anyone. It was ultimately what led my best friend to make the decision that she did. Seeing someone perish in front of you is horrible. At least I could give her, you know, words that in the afterlife would mean something. It changes your perspective on so many things. I'm no longer this, like, go happy kid that I used to be. I had to grow up. I had to become something different, to live. Especially after my best friend passed, I stood still while the rest of the planet kept moving, and that's quite something. And I think the thing I hate the most was people expecting me to get over it. That part was, it made you realize stuff about people. And so I've kind of learned to keep my grief to myself. I don't even call myself a widower, for example. I try not to attach labels to myself because I'm more than that. But for a long time, I was nothing but the loss, if that makes sense. My entire life was pretty much about what had happened, not what was going to happen. And honestly, I don't know how I found it in myself to keep moving. Like, I had these beliefs that, if it couldn't be for nothing, at least I could make something of it. For me, that meant living on and, living life again. I would hate to think that they would look down and be disappointed too. And that kind of became a reason too. I kept stacking these reasons to stay alive. That might seem silly, but it's what kept me going. I went pretty fucking insane. The pain really made me insane, but it kept me alive. For that, I'm thankful. There's this saying that if you're favored by God, you're favored by the devil. But I think that applies to me at least, I got to have such highs in my early 20s, but also the lowest of lows. And I still bridged the gap, I didn't let either get to me too much. My life is not about how great my life used to be. My life is completely different now. Different in a way that wasn't a plan, but I have a phenomenal partner. We're slowly building a future. And to those of you who are widows or just from the outside, I understand that finding love after being widowed it's somewhat looked down upon by society in general. It's not like I went looking for love or anything like that. It's not like I was dating after. No. I first met my partner like almost 3 years later. That's a story for another day. What I'm trying to say is that I didn't go looking for it, but it kind of came to me. During that time where I wasn't seeking out friendships and just meeting people, I found solace in the fact that I was at a point where I could move forward. I'd built myself up in a way where I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to dating again. And that sounded so weird to me at the time, and in ways it's not something I expected myself to be able to say. But that goes for a lot with grief. For those of you who are grieving someone right now, I know the pain. It seems unbearable, because it is unbearable. And I'm not gonna tell you it gets easier, because it does not. What does get easier is being able to carry it. You learn to live with it slowly. If you don't suppress it, that's very important. But most importantly, that you confront what it means for you. For me, losing my partner, losing my close friends, and losing my best friend meant that I would no longer be the same person, understandably so, and having to shift plans, having to rearrange your life because it simply changed was a necessity, I know if I'd stayed, if I hadn't moved back, all I would be doing would be to, visit the graveyard pretty much every week. And for a long time I did that. I would walk the grounds and I would, put my flowers, and I had like a whole almost ritual to it. It helped me grieve, is what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, it also kept me in the past. All the streets we used to go down, they feel so empty. They feel completely empty without them. They don't look the same, they don't feel the same, they don't smell the same, whatever, right? It's, in a way, I couldn't walk down the same path over and over and over and over again. At some point I would have to change, and I did. And I met a lot of resistance. I remember, for some reason, I think you call it bargaining, I'm pretty sure that's the term for it, but I tried to make solutions in my head to how things could have been different, and I have that. I have a solution for every single instance. For example, when it came to my best friend, it was very simply, if my flight hadn't been delayed, if I hadn't chosen to stay in Amsterdam for another day, I would have been back sooner in time to intervene. And same goes with the car crash. I wish I would have been the one driving instead. And the last one I'm not gonna touch on. I think that's too personal for me to discuss, but I might at some point, but it's not really important. what's important here is that your mind begins to play these tricks on you, and in a way that bargaining is, at least for me, making a solution to a problem you know you can't fix, so you don't have to actually confront the reality. And to me, the reality was just too much to bear at the time. Simply was. Like, how could I possibly choose to live a different life? You know, I felt like I had this commitment to these people, and pretty much everything has changed since then. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not studying law. I'm in a different field entirely. Now I don't live in Poland, for example, and you know, I have new friends. I have a different partner. You know, the people around me, the circles that I'm in, have pretty much changed completely. I'm still happy that I have such a great relationship with my family-in-law. They were pretty much my second family, even though I hate saying second family, because they mean more to me than my own family. Also, a different aspect of it is that, especially having a new partner, it's something that me and my father-in-law discussed pretty thoroughly. He was so happy that I'd met someone who I was actually interested in. He knew what that took. And he kind of cheered me on. He was like, maybe that's the right decision for you now. I know things have been tough the last 3 years, and I understand. That's what he told me. He's been the most compassionate and supportive person to me, and that says a lot. Except for my sister-in-law, she's amazing too. I think that's an interesting video idea. Dating after widowhood. All of this is to say that I was living a nightmare for so long. I pretty much thought that that was what my life was going to be, and yet I've found myself in a completely different position. I dragged myself through hell, and now when the time comes, it's just like taking a walk. It's made a lot of my life way easier, having such difficulty be presented to me so early. Yet if there's anything to take from this video is that grief can be beautiful. It can teach you the right lessons. It can teach you how to be a more compassionate, more supportive and understanding person, and just greater overall. And that's what I've taken away from all of this. I've learned to be a much better person. Just looking at my life now, there's no question about it that I show how much I care about people way more. Every chance I get to show my gratitude, I take. And so for those of you grieving, I know what it's like to live a nightmare and not even find solace in sleep. Every day just seems like there's nothing important anymore. And so I wish for you to continue. Find a meaning in what happened in your case, and I know it's difficult. I know how difficult it is. I'm not gonna say it's not. However, I hope you can take something from my situation and where I'm at now. And if you have any questions or anything is troubling you in your time of grief, leave a comment. A couple months ago, something really struck a chord with me. It came as a question on Buggy's inbox from somebody else who's also lost his partner. And he asked how to move forward, and I just remember Buggy saying something along the lines of your heart not being a hard drive. I think that's true. I've found it incredibly important for me to keep the memories of those people I lost alive, and so I kind of live my life in a way where that is possible. It's no longer a question about why live on, it's a how can I use my life to help other people? How can I use those dark times as a reason to find the light? And to close this video off, I will say lean on the people around you. Doesn't matter if it's just one person, it can make all the difference. My father-in-law is not just a great man, he's someone I still look up to in so many ways. He even leaned on me when it came to it, and there's a solace in knowing we were both drowning together in grief, but being able to push one another, and we have this shared pain and nothing can take that away. Yet we've managed to let it be a part of who we are today, and on that note, these memories have been something I cherish so much. My life is all about gratitude now. I'm so grateful for everything, the good, the bad, the euphoric nature of life sometimes, and the devastating nature of life. there's no way around what life brings you, and being confronted with that can change you in ways you wouldn't believe. Never imagined myself to be where I'm at now, especially given what's been happening in my life, but I've managed to always take the shitty cards I've been dealt and turning it into something beautiful. And I guess that speaks to who I am as a person, but I think there's quite the story to being so suicidal as I was, and then being at a place where I can say that death can have me when it earns me. I'm not ready to go yet. I have way more to do on this planet, and I have much more to share. But yeah, I have quite the dad lore when it comes time to have kids, yet I've found wisdom in all of this, wisdom I could not have gained, empathy that I could not have attained, and the sympathy I can have for people now is way different than before, so it isn't all bad. I couldn't let myself be bitter. I would much rather be in a position where all these memories are something that I want to keep, you know. With that said, the memories, I think I'd rather die than wait for them to fade away.